Today we're going to be shucking some oysters and we're going to be making a spicy mignonette to go with them. A mignonette is essentially shallots and vinegar. I'm going to add a couple of Asian flavors. This is my go-to mignonette, hands down my favorite. It's a little spicy, it's tingly, and I have another great mignonette that I'll post in a later recipe. So if you're in the East Coast, typically the best times to get oysters are the months that have the letter R in it. During these months, you're gonna get fresh oysters, you're gonna get bigger oysters, and you're gonna get cheaper oysters. Oysters are great cocktail food.
They're also known to be aphrodisiacs.
When you go to a restaurant, if you pay attention to the wines that they start you with, they're typically very briny, acidic wines. They're doing that to stimulate your hunger and to get your mouth salivating. Oysters, in essence, are the same thing. You get the brininess from the oysters, the acidity from the mignonette, and other things that go with oysters as well. Lemon, fresh horseradish, Tabasco, all delicious. We're gonna be doing mignonette. So, let's start. Start by peeling 1 to 2 dry shallots and keep the root side on. Horizontally slice them down to the root and then stop. Now use the heel of your knife to make vertical slices in the same direction. Use your knuckles to guide your blade and slice crosswise to make a fine brunoise. Scrape these into a ramekin, then we're going to clean our cutting board and we're going to grab a couple of Thai chilies. Split them twice lengthwise, then go for a slightly smaller cut than our shallots. If you have sensitive hands, you can wear gloves, but I find the gloves make it harder to slice, so just don't be a little bitch. I actually recommend just using one Thai chili if you're not accustomed to spice. We're going to peel our ginger with a spoon, break off some garlic. Now we're going to run them through a microplane. I accidentally processed these ingredients into separate ramekins, so we're going to combine them here. We're going to add our red wine vinegar. I like my mignonette pretty chunky. Once it's around this consistency, it's almost ready. Now it's time to add our honey. Shout out to these guys in Montreal who are making delicious spicy honey. Sesame oil. Don't add too much. Some fresh lemon juice. It's almost there now. We're just going to add a bit of salt to bring it all together. We've got salty, sweet, sour, and spicy all in one ramekin. Make sure the balance is right. For our other accompaniment, lemon wedges. You want nice wedges, guys? Remove any seeds, membrane, and pith on the exposed flesh. Okay, here we go. It's time for our oysters. First things first, let's get this fucker open. I'm gonna add crushed ice to our oyster tray. I used a rolling pin to break it up a bit. Now we're gonna move fast. So let's talk about shucking. You can see I've wedged my oyster between a kitchen rag. Keep the cup side down, which holds the oyster in the brine. From the hinge of the oyster, I'm going to twist my blade to pry it open. Slide the sharp side of the blade against the top shell to separate the oyster. Here you can see I didn't quite remove the top part, which broke the oyster up. This is an example of a poorly shucked oyster. The last step of shucking is to free the oyster from the bottom of the shell. Wipe your blade to remove any debris before sliding it under the adductor muscle. Now that is a 10 on 10. Oyster is clean, intact, and full of brine. So oysters can stay alive and good in the fridge for up to 3 weeks, but it really depends on how you store them. The idea is to keep them alive, so you want to refrigerate them cup side down, do not submerge them in water or keep them in an airtight bag, and keep them away from the fridge fan. One piece of advice when shucking, guys, keep a rag between your oyster and your cutting board to prevent damaging it. I once had a party where we had about 100 oysters, 3 to 4 people shucking, and my board took a real beating. Alright guys, we've got our oysters, we've got our mignonette, and we have a couple of slices of lemon. I'm not going to have a cocktail today, but I am going to have a little dram of this Lafroy 16. A lot of people talk about pairing wines. There's not enough people talking about pairing whiskeys. For oysters, I would go for something smoky, something dry. Let's give it a taste. It's all good. I've said it before, my spice tolerance is pretty good, so I add quite a lot of chili. Typically, people don't recommend high ABV spirits with spicy food, because you'll see after eating some spicy food, this is going to kick it up. If you want a milder drink, friends and I often have Aperol Spritz when enjoying these. And that's it, guys. I hope you enjoy this recipe, and you'll see this mignonette just sparkles. It's an awesome side to your oysters. I'm gonna go bring some to the missus.